scary stories.
So I just recently found this thread and decided to share something that happened to me a few months ago that creeped me out. Tickets for my favorite group, BTS, were going on sale. Getting tickets for them is hell, and having a good laptop and Wi-Fi was key to up your chances of snatching a good seat. My university's Wi-Fi was complete ass, so I decided that I would go around to various fast food places and test their Wi-Fi to see which ones was the best. This wasn't too hard to do since my university was walking distance from an abundance of various restaurants and fast food places, plus more food places that were a few minutes away by car or bus. One of these places I decided to test was McDonald's, which was only a 5-minute drive from my university. I had my boyfriend take me, and we went inside and set up my laptop, iPad, and iPhone. We ordered something to snack on as well, because you can't pass up the opportunity of McDonald's fries if you are in McDonald's. In front of our table was a group of old geriatric corpses. My boyfriend and I were busy checking the Wi-Fi speed and conversing and giggling when one of the old guys decided to jokingly make a comment along the lines about how we shouldn't be doing homework on a weekend and how teenagers are always working or into their phones. We both just awkwardly chuckled and then went back to what we were doing and tried to look busy. Apparently old people don't care if you're busy whatsoever, because he kept making jokes and speaking to us and telling us to stop working, etc. Notably, the majority of his remarks and conversation were directed towards me, and not just my boyfriend. Now, I was already kind of nervous because people randomly talking to me makes me a little antsy, especially ones who keep on rambling after I make it clear I don't want to talk anymore. But him being an older man added to my nervousness even more due to how creepy and predatory they can be. He starts asking questions that are more personal, like where do I go to school and how old I was and whatnot. I was getting uncomfortable at this point, but answered his questions and told him the college I attended and how old I was. Looking back now, I don't think me telling him the truth about it was that harmful. He probably forgot as soon as I told him. He also starts complimenting me and saying how pretty I was. All the while he's doing this, the other men were either laughing or telling him to leave the poor girl alone. He starts to make some comments on me and my boyfriend's relationship as well, saying how we were cute and it's nice to see young couples and how long we've been with each other. After we answer, he laughs and says,
Well, if you ever get tired of him and want to look for someone else, I'm always available. You can kill me and get some money.
I was 100% uncomfortable at this point and just laughed along nervously while scooching closer to my boyfriend. I didn't think he was serious though, and was just trying to joke around with us to seem likable or cool, but him even suggesting that was creepy and uncalled for. He finally left us alone after that as he chuckles to himself and goes back to talking to the other corpses. After a few minutes, I asked my boyfriend if he would grab me some things from the car because I wasn't feeling too good due to reasons. As soon as he left, the old guys and his friends get up too, and I hoped that they would just walk out and pass by my table without saying a word to me. But apparently I have bad luck, so instead the same old man talking to me stops and stands right by me. He sees my university ID card and picks it up, making remarks on how good I looked in the picture and how I looked even prettier in person, and just looking me up and down. His friends chuckle, tell him to leave the poor girl alone, and I hoped he would clean the wax out of his ears and listen and leave me alone. He just laughs, places his hand on my shoulder, giving it a light squeeze, while exclaiming,
No, I don't want to leave her alone. Keep.
At this point, I was way past uncomfortable. I knew nothing deadly was going to happen to me because we were in a public place, even though the McDonald's was empty, so I knew they weren't going to kidnap me or anything, but I was still severely creeped out. I was screaming in my head for my boyfriend to hurry the fuck back in here so that they would leave, because I didn't know what to do besides nervously laugh. They linger for a while the old guy looks at my ID card one more time before putting it back down on the table and squeezes my shoulder again. He finally leaves after telling me to have a good day. A few seconds later, my boyfriend returns, and I'm sitting there trying to relax and calm my nerves. I might be overreacting at getting so nervous because the threat of me being taken or hurt was most likely next to none, but old men hitting on young girls just severely creeps me out beyond words. To that old man, let's never meet again. So this happened over the span of a year when I was 15 or 16 years old. I'm 20 now, and it only recently been revealed to me how fucked up the situation really was. I was still living at home at the time, but my sister, who is 7 years older than me, had moved out and was living with her new husband, their high school best friend, and some other dude they met via one of those find a roommate sites. He was kind of the reclusive nerdy type, much preferring to hide in his room watching Star Trek, playing computer games than actually hanging out with the roommates, and the only person he ever really seemed to want to be around was his similarly shy, nerdy girlfriend. For a little context of the story, at the time this happened, he was 28 and she was 24. They were both a little weird, but initially seemed entirely harmless. For ease of telling the story and for saving on characters, the friendly roommate will be FR, weird roommate will be WR, and his weird girlfriend will be WGF. Now, my sister and I never really had the best relationship with our parents, and at this point things were especially rocky. Our mother was dating a guy who was, to put it kindly, an abusive sack of shit who seemingly loathed me and would find any excuse to get off at me. As a result, I spent a lot of time staying over at my sister's place. It was around the time I'd spend a lot of time there that WR and WGF started to get really strange. As I said earlier, the pair of them were always kinda odd. They only ever seemed to want to speak to each other and would even go as far as to ignore anyone else who spoke to them. WGF was worse than WR for this by a mile. He would at least give you monosyllabic responses most of the time. She had a kind of creepy habit of just blankly staring at you for a couple of seconds, then walking away if you asked her a question or tried to engage her in conversation at all. That isn't really the weird behavior, though. When I would stay over, I'd sleep on a futon in FR's office space, which was on the ground floor. It happened to be next to the downstairs bathroom, which for some reason WGF vastly preferred to the upstairs one. She would take long showers in the middle of the night, which is whatever. I'm a pretty heavy sleeper and she wasn't a shower singer or anything like that, so I generally slept right through them. One night, however, I stayed up mega late doing revision and homework and happened to be awake after she finished her shower. I was too absorbed in my tasks to really pay attention to anything else, but I definitely noted hearing the shower shut off because that was my indicator to how goddamn late it really was. Approximately 10 minutes later, I look up from my laptop, and there she is. I always kept the door open just a crack because that room tended to get unbearably hot if I didn't. And she was standing there outside the room, butt-ass naked, watching me through the open crack in the door. I said her name and asked if she was okay, which seemingly startled her because she walked away pretty sharpish. I convinced myself that in my over-caffeinated, sleep-deprived state, I'd imagined the whole thing and didn't mention it to anyone. Fast forward around a month, and I head over to my sister's one night to find FR kind of agitated about what he perceives to be a peeping Tom problem. He found fingerprints on the outside of his office window in such a way that would imply someone had been pressing up against the glass and looking in. The blind in his room was slightly too small for the window, so you could see in from the outside if you looked through the sides, and the room was on the front of the house and the window was easily accessible from the street. He had become concerned that some random passing pervert had been spying on him while he was having a private moment, so to speak, in his office, or else some potential burglar had been sizing up the joint. The police were called, but as they didn't have any external CCTV at this point, no evidence could be provided, and ultimately not a lot could be done. To combat this escalating further, FR installed both internal and external CCTV on the house. This was installed whilst WR and WGF were away on a holiday, and I guess everyone just forgot to tell them about it. Another couple of months later, I go to my sister's to find WR's room empty and informed that he has moved out. Of course, I asked why, and I was informed simply that he and WGF were a pair of fucking creeps, and that the others had collectively decided to kick them out. Apparently, her watching me through the office door was not a one-time incident. The CCTV footage showed that she regularly made a habit of standing and watching me through the cracked door, sometimes for as long as 20 to 30 minutes. I was just usually asleep when she did it. Not only that, but the fingerprints on the window had quite apparently been from WR, standing outside and watching me after I'd showered, and was just hanging out in just a towel, which was a less regular occurrence, but apparently was caught on camera enough times for it to be concerning. As if that wasn't weird enough in and of itself, I was recently hanging out with my sister and her husband, and he passed a comment about how he wishes they'd told me the full story at the time, so he could have chosen to press charges. I asked what he meant by that, and he revealed that not only had they both been secretly watching me, the CCTV also showed that they had messed with the food and stuff that I bought, including clips of him licking all of my apples, her spitting in my orange juice, even dumping regular cow's milk into my lactose-free stuff, which explained why I had a period of feeling really sick from nowhere. To top it all off, apparently when FR barged into their room to confront them about it, he not only found that several shirts I thought I'd misplaced elsewhere had been stolen by the two of them, and literally hung on their wall. She had done several drawings of me sleeping, and written a poem called Ode to My Name, whose contents I don't know and don't really want to know. Apparently FR gave them an ultimatum of, you have 2 hours to get the fuck out of this house, and never contact Gingerbread Bloke or any of us again, or I'm calling the police. And they took the former option. They have never tried to contact me subsequent to this, but I feel sick thinking of what they were potentially planning. My sister's 20-something roommate who watched my teenage self sleep. Let's not meet again. Just a little note before we get started. My son looks nothing like me, and I have a baby face. So when people see my son and I, they see babysitter, not mother. I had just gotten off of work, and my husband was waiting for me with our son, who was 4 months old at the time. We ordered something to go, and my husband went to use the bathroom, while my co-workers co-ed over my baby at the pickup counter. I see this older man watching us, but I dismiss it because my son usually gets a lot of attention, plus he came to the McDonald's pretty regularly and didn't raise any red flags. He came up to us and smiled at my son and asked if he could hold him. I politely declined. He pulled a 20 out of his wallet.
Why don't you take this and get yourself a sandwich and leave the baby with me?
He said, trying to hand me the money. No, thank you. I tried to be polite. I needed my job. We just got a new general manager, and I wanted to make a good impression.
Aren't you hungry? It's so hard to work 2 jobs. I'm sure if anything happened, the parents wouldn't blame you.
I was about to go off on him when my husband came out of the bathroom and placed himself between me and the man.
Oh, you must be the father.
He offered my husband the money, but didn't talk about taking our son. We made our way out of the store, and then the man followed, offering us money the entire way. My husband, fed up, stopped on a dime. The man ran into him, and my husband stared daggers at the man until he went back into the store. A few weeks later, he came back to the store. He ranted on about how he could have given the baby a better life than the young man. I told him I was the mother and that he could get his sausage biscuit somewhere else because he wasn't welcome here anymore.